Hi, my name is Amanda Henke. I'm the author of Not a Book About Bunnies. You're tuned into So Booking Cool.
So fucking cool.
There's so motherfucking cool to listen to So Fucking Cool.
Welcome to So Booking Cool, it's Jewel B. Today's guest has degrees in marketing and writing for children and young adults and is currently studying screenwriting. Her debut book, Not a Book About Bunnies, illustrated by Anna Deviscourt, came out earlier this year. She once co-owned a company that made Oprah's favorite things. She is Amanda Henke. Hi, Amanda.
Yes, hi. Thank you for having me, and thank you for the lovely introduction.
Oh, my pleasure. It's great to have you here. And did I say your last name correctly? Did I get it right?
It's Henke.
Henke. Okay. Nice. Henke. All right. So, Amanda, as pointed out, you once co-owned Annie B's, which sells popcorn and candy, and it made Oprah's list of favorite things. Now, are you still involved with that company? And just tell us what that experience was like.
Sure, I'm happy to. So I'm still indirectly involved in that my ex-husband, who is the father of my son, still owns the business. And happily, he and I have a very great relationship. We're still good friends. And sometimes he'll ask me advice or something. But yeah, I'm always rooting for the company. It's still doing really well. He's making still making caramel popcorn and using a lot more like chocolate in his stuff now, which is I love being a taste tester. So yeah, and if you'd like to hear about the Oprah thing, I'm happy to tell you because that was a really cool experience. So what happened is I was actually pregnant with our son August, and my big pregnancy craving was caramel. And I wanted to like eat it all the time, but healthily because I didn't want to be putting a bunch of corn syrup in my body. And so I was trying to make caramels out of the kitchen, and that's really hard to do. Like you have the thermometer going, you have to get the sugar bubbling just right. It's really hard. So my then husband was in snack manufacturing in the business, and I was working for the University of Minnesota in health and nutrition. And we through a friend happened upon this company, Annie B's, that was owned by a couple, and they were ready to sell it. And we're like, he went and toured the factory, brought me home caramels, and I ate 12 of them in one sitting. And I'm like, we're never going to beat these guys. We better hop on this business. So we bought it right around the time we had our son. And I rebranded it because the branding was outdated. And Justin, my ex-husband, took the new look to this candy show in Atlanta, and Oprah's right-hand man and creative director Adam Glassman noticed our beautiful sunny new logo and was pulled in to try the product. And from there it was just like he said, well, this is wonderful, this looks great, maybe I can get you an Oprah's favorite things. And it was a vetting process. We had to go through 3 rounds of like getting to the next tier, and then we found out 6 weeks before the magazine dropped that we were indeed one of her favorite things. So that was a whirlwind. It was really cool. Very good for business, as you might imagine. Very busy time, but it was a very cool story.
And no one can ever take that away from you.
Yes, exactly. Thank you. Yeah.
Yeah, sure. And I did check out an interview that you had done around the time of you co-owning Annie B's, and a book that you recommended was The Innovator's Dilemma. Do you still recommend this book? And if so, is that just a general book recommendation, or is that more so you think for entrepreneurs?
I haven't read that for a long time or had my headspace in there. I have to imagine if I read it then, I probably would still recommend it now. I got to check that out again though. And I'm sure it's entrepreneur friendly, I would say. Probably not what I am studying right now. I've sort of shifted gears, but yeah, I I would say I trust myself in the past, and yeah, I would probably go ahead and read that if you're looking into being an entrepreneur.
Now, Amanda, what makes you recommend a book to someone?
Well, if I finish it, then I will recommend it because I'm kind of a fickle book reader. I don't have a ton of time to read for pleasure, and it sort of puts me to sleep at night. So if I finish a book, then I will recommend it. And there are some that I reread every year, just because I love them and how they make me feel. But there are a lot that I start and don't finish. I usually have like 5 books going at any given time. Just whatever I'm in the mood to read. So yeah, I think. But if I finish it, and especially if it's one that I reread every year, I recommend it to people.
What was your relationship like with books, you would say, from the very beginning of life?
I've always loved books, and like my fondest memories of books when I was little were of my brother Matt and I would stay sometimes at my grandma Grace's house,
Mhm.
and she spoiled us. I mean, it was ice cream, staying up until midnight playing War, and like that card game that's so silly. But the best would be when we'd be all tuckered out and we'd like snuggle up in bed and she'd just lay between us and she would read us Three Billy Goats Gruff. That was like, for some reason, we just loved hearing that story. And um, she'd finish reading it and we'd like wake up and say again, again, and try to stay awake so we could hear it. And she would read it as many times as we asked. That's just a very warm memory for me. And then I was always the kid who would like grab a book and a lemonade and go find like a shady spot and just read. I was more of an introvert in reading when I was younger. So yeah, I love books. What a great escape, you know?
Hmm. Did you imagine that you would become an author?
No, I never took myself seriously in that capacity. I it just seemed like far too big of a dream to me. And so I still don't, I'm not sure that I'm an author. It's, I'm so amazed by so many writers still. And no, that was not in my plans, but I'm really happy that I tried out marketing. I think it was a success for me, but then I was just ready for something different and I let myself write in earnest. When I was in school, I had to be told like, actually you need to take your writing seriously, and I let myself do it. So yeah, lucky me. Really cool.
Yeah. So when you were told that you needed to take your writing seriously, how so?
Mostly that I actually had to sit and write, like more than anything, put time into it and energy and thought and not just sort of dabble. Like I think before I went to grad school at Hamlin, I was more of a dabbler when it came to creative writing. Like in undergrad, I would write poetry sometimes, but none of that exists anymore because I would just, put it on the page and then dispose of it before anybody could ever see it. So, but at Hamlin, I mean, I was writing for probably 2 or 3 hours a day and then editing one or two again because it was such an intense program. And it was exhausting, but I really learned to love it and hate it at the same time, depending on the day.
Mhm.
But yeah,
What would you say is the most valuable thing that you learned when you were studying children's literature, children's writing?
we had some really great professors at Hamlin, and I think there's there are really, can I say 2 things?
Sure.
So, okay. Nina LaCour, she's a young adult author, great writer in San Francisco. She told us her sort of mantra for writing is some words on most days. So write something most of the time. You don't, don't pressure yourself to write every day, because some days if you're just not feeling it, it's not going to be worth your time. Go take a walk or do something, go cook something, something that can get creative juices flowing in a different way, and be kind to yourself. Don't force yourself to write something, because it's going to show that you forced it and it's not worth your time. Also, another wonderful professor I had, Co Booth, also a middle grade and young adult author. Her advice, and I had to take this one very seriously, was like, listen, we all, you're writing something, you get bored in it, you have a sparkly, shiny new idea, and you want to go to that idea, like, but don't do it. Take that idea, type it down quick, put it in. I have a folder on my desktop for this, for sparkling new ideas, and then get it out of your head and keep slogging away at the idea that was sparkly and shiny and is now, you're trying to get to the finish line on that. So I love that advice. That was really helpful. It seems like a no-brainer in a way, but I have to use that bit a lot.
Thank you for sharing that and passing that on.
Happily.
So when it comes to not a book about bunnies, right? Your debut children's book, what was that journey like trying to get published? Did you face a lot of rejection like a lot of authors typically do?
Oh yeah. It was my journey was not typical, and I don't think any authors is, but mine was really strange. So I started writing it when I was in school in 2017. I started, and the program there was like an independent study. Like each semester you'd work one-on-one with a certain author really intensely, and that was so great. So my professor that semester was Marsha Chawla. She writes picture books, funny ones. She's one of the funniest people I've ever met, just perfect for writing comedy. And I was writing a lot of kind of fluffy bears, bunnies stuff, typical books. And I'm like, gosh, I would love to write about an underdog. I just want to write about someone that you don't read about very often, and in kids' books. And my character initially was now a porcupine, started off as an oyster. Really weird, I know. Marsha was okay with it, and she was very encouraging. But then the following semester, I worked with another wonderful author, Alana K. Arnold. She is a young adult. She writes everything. She writes picture books, young adult, amazing stuff. Middle grade, she's great. So, and she said, logistically, I don't know if an oyster and a bunny are ever going to meet. And I'm like, fair point. So I changed it. I changed it to something else in between, and I can't remember what it was. Oh, it was a termite. And she said, size-wise, I'm not sure that a termite and a bunny are ever going to be able to like connect. And I'm like, again, a fair point. Like, how is this going to be illustrated? And so I started thinking about animals that actually, I realize this isn't the question you asked me now that I'm answering you. You asked me about my publishing journey, and I'm telling you about writing. I'm sorry.
No, it's okay.
Okay. So I changed it to a porcupine, and I did a bunch of research on porcupines, and they're really fascinating. So I finished that book, and what I did was entered a Twitter contest, hashtag PB pitch, where you pitch your picture book, and then if editors and agents like it, you can submit to them. And I got a heart from my editor for most of the time during this book. Her name is Allison Hill. She was with Page Street Kids at the time, and she worked back and forth with me, giving feedback, and I would edit it and send it back. 3 rounds of emails, and then she offered me a book contract, and I leveraged that to try to get an agent, because I wanted an agent then for the long term. And I got an agent, Carrie at Jennifer D. Chiara. I don't know if that agency is still around. Carrie was a wonderful agent, but decided to leave the business to go pursue something else, which I understand. And with that, my book contract was dropped. So I was like, okay, I'm going to just leave this book alone for a little bit. But then, like 2 years later, Allison reached out to me and asked if I still had that book around. And she was at a new publisher and would love to see it. And I was like, of course, I'm going to send this to you. And she was at Starry Forest Books, which is my publisher. And I worked with her for, well, two and a half years, I suppose, to get my book on the shelves. And that's how that went. It was sort of a winding road.
Wow.
Yeah.
There's a lot to take from that. And even when you were just talking about how you were working with those authors while you were studying,
Yes.
and what they were giving you the feedback, that was so interesting, Amanda, especially because this is a world of like imagination and pretend, but from what those authors are saying is that it still has to make sense in a way, like it still has to be realistic in some way. Is that right?
I think it depends on the author. Like Marsha was fine with the oyster and the bunny meeting because it was funny. Alana, though, took it more seriously and did want some sort of sense of reality involved in the fantasy of that. So I guess, I think it's okay to be silly and great, but also, you don't want to talk down to kids or maybe something completely wacky. I think it was fair that there should have been sort of some reality involved, and I'm happy that, especially for an illustrator. I mean, you don't want to make it so difficult for the illustrator that they're like, how do I draw a termite to size, to scale, to meet a bunny? Or how is a bunny ever going to go in the ocean and meet an oyster? So I think it helps to think of the illustrators and the struggle that they might have with whatever strange story you're trying to tell. Yeah.
Do you see yourself writing about an oyster in the future?
Yes, and only because I have this picture. I don't know, I'm kind of fascinated by oysters. I don't eat them, but I
Okay.
like how they look, and they're so cool because they're so rough and rocky on the outside, and then you open them up and there's that magical, beautiful pearl. That whole thing to me is just fascinating. Also, I'll say this because I don't think anyone will take it. I have a great name for an oyster, Beverly. For some reason, I think an oyster named Beverly is just a really funny character. So I'm working on it. We'll see.
It sounds like you have something though. Like I can just tell, and I know other people listening can tell too. Like the way you just described it as a pearl, and you have a good name for it. Yeah.
Thanks.
I don't know if you should sit on that.
Okay.
But yeah, not a book about bunnies. We kind of talked about, you mentioned some of the animals that you were playing around with as you were coming up with the idea. What are the most popular animals would you say in picture books?
Bears and bunnies.
Okay.
I think hands down. Yeah. I mean, in school we had lectures about that, like bears and bunnies, because they're just so lovable. They're so cute. I think they're easy to make cute when you're drawing them. That's what a lot of the stuffed animals kids have are. Definitely people are branching out, which is wonderful. There are so many amazing picture books right now. But I feel like historically it's bears and bunnies.
And yeah, that was really unique and creative to want to do one on a porcupine, and even just the facts that you share. And the famous line, "This is not a book about bunnies." It makes me think about teachers when they're doing read aloud, and every time that line comes, the teacher's probably having the kids say that line every time. Is that something that you visualized when you were writing your book?
No, but I love that. That sounds wonderful. I hope that's happening. I think it was just I needed I did learn to write like something that's repeatable, something that the kids can anticipate. I was picturing it more the parents reading it to the kid, just because at the time that I was writing it, my own son was 4, 5, 6, and we were reading a lot of picture books together. And he and his favorite ones would also anticipate the fun lines to say and say them with me. But the idea of teachers and classes saying, "Oh, even that's even better." Totally different energy there. I love that.
And your son, was it August who did influence the book at all? And if so, as a mom, does that usually happen with your writing?
For me, my son is I tell everyone he's my fiercest editor and he's my harshest critic. He doesn't take it easy on me at all. So, and I trust that, right? He's my audience. Also, he gives me great ideas, great lines, just because he's such a curious kid. So whenever we're exploring the world, he has so many questions, and it's very exhausting to try to answer them all. But sometimes then I'm like, well, let's write that down and we're going to research it when we get home. And then book ideas pop up, which is how lucky, how wonderful. That's really great. I do think, as far as like my other kids book writing friends go, their kids all definitely influence what they're writing on some level. Excuse me.
And speaking of writing, you're studying screenwriting, yes?
Yes, so I'm like making a major turn. I guess I'm trying to take myself seriously in writing for adults now. I'm not leaving writing for kids. I just really want to explore screenwriting, and I know the timing is off with the writer's strike and everything, and I really hope that resolves in the writer's favors, and rooting for that. But I still, yes, I'm studying with a professor directly at NYU. So I'm actually talking to him later this afternoon. I have not met him yet. We've just been emailing. So my class was supposed to start mid-September, but I think we're going to start a little bit early, which is great. I'm excited. I'm ready to go.
That's exciting. Congratulations, not only on being a published author, but taking on this new journey as well. What are you most looking forward to learning about screenwriting?
I naturally write in dialogue. So and I've been I've gotten in trouble for it before in my picture books. Like, this is too much dialogue. Again, that's something that's not very easy to illustrate. So I'm excited to be able to write in dialogue and not have to worry about an illustrator, but I'm not sure the things that I need to focus on instead when it comes to screenwriting. I mean, that's a totally different world, very new to me. And I'm excited to hear about that. And I really like to be held accountable. I think I write better when I know someone is expecting something from me. So I'm excited about that too. I like to be, critiqued and graded, and I like being a student.
Yeah, your website does say in your bio, you say you're a perpetual student.
Yeah, I am. I love learning, and I think I do my best when I'm learning something, and when I'm writing for somebody to tell me how terrible it is, or maybe that it's okay. So yeah.
With Not a Book About Bunnies, who did you write that for?
Well, it started, it's always for my son, 100%. It was about him mainly, but then I worked on it so much with so many different people. That was a 5-year process for 306 words or something, which is wild. But I started, writing it to Marcia, my professor, because I wanted to make her laugh, because she's a very funny lady, and I wanted to make her laugh. And then when I was writing it, working with Ilana, I wanted to make it realistic. I wanted to make it feel a little bit more girthy, for lack of a better word, a little more substance. And then the final semester in school, I worked with another author, Phyllis Root. She's a kids book author. She's a pro. Um, I really wanted to add heart for her because she is just like the most wonderful, warm. She's like a hug of a person. And um, so I wrote to my son and to those three wonderful authors. And then I worked on it, with another editor, Emma Dryden. Um, and
Yeah.
and so I worked with her, and she was really helpful on like the structure of it. So that felt more technical, but I needed that. And then working on it with Allison, my editor, she was really, I think she liked the whole playfulness of it, and she was more concerned with like the actual words. So that was really fun to sit and try to workshop one word. Like she wouldn't let me get away with like a vague word in the whole thing. I tried to use the word lovely and she didn't let me. That word, I thought 3 days. I had thesaurus out. I'm trying really hard to figure out a different word. I couldn't come up with it. And what happened is I told my son, I can't come up with a different word for lovely. And on the spot, he said, well, what's the sentence? And it was, I am, now I am. And he said, what about spectacular? He came up with the word spectacular in 30 seconds and made me feel like a failure as an author, but also I put it in, and Allison and the team loved it. So it stuck. So that was cool.
Yeah, that is terrific.
Yeah.
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 Genius, you know?
Yeah.
But that also shows, I guess, that inspiration can come from anywhere, right? And you were able to recognize that that worked.
Yes. Yeah. I mean, sometimes you pull help. I have writing partners and critique partners who I trust. And, sometimes if you just pick someone's brain or send them a piece of work, who knows what they're going to offer you. So I think it's fair to let other trusted people in and see how they can help you. Yeah.
The ending of the book is so touching.
Thank
Like
you.
you're very welcome. It goes back to that feeling of like what a lot of picture books and what a lot of children's books do and are, I feel, even supposed to do.
Mhm.
And yours does that. Like I just got such a warm and fuzzy feeling. I was like, oh wow, that's so touching, really sweet. What has been the response to the book so far?
I have gotten a lot of that kind of feedback. And I mean, I didn't know what to expect because after you're looking at something for 5 years, you don't even know what you're looking at anymore. It's just, it was sort of almost just white noise to me at that point. But um, yeah, I've gotten, that kids really love it. I had one mother tell me that it makes her daughter love reading now, and she didn't before. That book really encouraged. She loved it so much that she was like, "Oh my gosh, let's go get more. Let's go get more books about bunnies and porcupines." That made me cry. I mean, that's a wonderful response, right? If I can get one kid to love reading, how cool. Um, Another woman, her daughter is writing, and I'm still waiting for it. Her daughter's writing a sequel called Not a Book About Porcupines. So sort of a little rival author I have there. I mean, that's cool though. She's writing it out. I saw pictures. She's writing it. She's illustrating it. So that's that kind of thing. Just these little individual bits are very heartwarming. It's amazing. I love that.
Could you imagine a world without books?
No, no, how terrible, especially for kids. Like, kids, oh, they've got so much going on right now, and they've got so much screens, and they're at school, and it's busy. I mean, I only know really what my son and my friends' kids are going through, but it feels like a lot more than we were going through in the 80s. And to to if you couldn't go home and just sort of lose yourself in a book for half an hour or an hour, whatever, I'm not sure how you would sort of have recovery time from all of that stimulation everywhere else, lights and screens. I think a book is such a comfort. So no, and I'm really glad that we have access to books and the right ones, the good ones, you know what I mean? So,
Definitely.
yeah.
How do you think someone can become better at writing children's books?
By reading other children's books, I would say. That was something that was definitely sort of really taught to us at Hamlin, and it's true. I mean, I think for me, when I was writing Not a Book About Bunnies, I had stacks of picture books from the libraries, or I would go to a bookstore and just buy a couple that I really had wanted anyway. Not to take anything from authors or anything like that. It's just to see what they're doing and take notes on words they're using and pacing and page turns, and even to imagine how it might be illustrated is helpful. Like illustrators add so much to picture books. I feel like Anna added half of the story for sure. I mean, it was the way she took that into that magical land. When you open it, it's so warm and colorful and bright, and she made the characters just so lovable, not overly sweet. I don't know. She added the squirrel librarian. I did not do that. That was Anna. So I and that's like my favorite thing in the book. Yeah, I just think if you want to write, it helps to devote a lot of time to reading in the genre that you would like to write as well.
Wow. And on that note, Amanda Henke.
Yay. Thank you.
Thank you. It was a pleasure to speak with you today. And, yeah, I would love to speak with you again in the future.
Anytime.
And great. Okay, awesome. And let everyone know how they can keep up with you. Not a Book About Bunnies is available wherever books are sold. And yeah, tell us more.
Yeah, you can find me on Instagram, Amanda J. Henke. You can go to my website, amandahenke.com, and you can shoot me a message there if you'd like to. I respond to messages, to emails, and I'm here. I'm writing. If you want to talk writing with me, if you want kid recommendations for your kids to read, if you're a teacher or a parent, I'm happy to offer what I love. And yeah, I'm here for you. Let's start the conversation. And I would love to chat with you again too, Jewel, anytime.
Thank you. Yes, this sounds like a plan.
All right.
And thank you as well to all the viewers, all the listeners. Until next time, so booking cool.
So booking cool indeed. Thank you.